Women of Pearl Harbor. On December 7, 1941, at 7:55 a.m., the United States was hit with a silent attack from Japanese fighter planes. They launched 2 waves of bombs onto naval vessels and aircraft. Thousands of lives were lost as a result of this less than 2-hour battle, including sailors, Marines, nurses, and civilians. No one anticipated the aftermath. Among the heroes of Pearl Harbor were the women who fought tirelessly beside their male counterparts. Women were unable to be soldiers. They played a vital role as nurses, mechanics, drivers, and telegraphers. After the attack, opportunities arose with the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps. Women contributed their efforts in uniform overseas and on the home front. It was then that I realized how important women can be in a war-torn world, wrote Elizabeth McIntosh. Betty was working at Pearl Harbor as a reporter on that fateful day. As a reporter for the Honolulu Star-Bulletin, Betty bore witness to many injured and dying soldiers and the nurses who frantically tried to save each one. Betty wrote a detailed account of all she witnessed during the attacks on Pearl Harbor, although her words were not published until 71 years later. Betty survived Pearl Harbor and joined the CIA. In 2015, she passed away at 100 years old. Teresa Stauffer Foster was a nurse at Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. She was walking through the garden near the hospital after her shift the morning of the attack. A low flying plane flew overhead and waved down to the group of nurses. Without knowing what was about to come, Foster waved back. Moments later, the attack on Pearl Harbor began. Foster assisted with triaging soldiers, including placing lipstick marks on their foreheads, indicating the severity of injuries. In 1940, Danyo Willgrube joined the Navy Nurse Corps. She was stationed on the USS Solace at Pearl Harbor. Willgrube was asleep on the ship when she heard an explosion. She looked out to see smoke pouring out of the USS Arizona. The nurses were instructed to get dressed as quickly as possible and report for duty. Willgrube and the other nurses worked to help over 130 patients, the majority of who were burn victims. In a letter found in the 80s, Willgrube wrote, "We were so thankful that the Japanese did not realize how they crippled us, because they could have taken over the islands had they known the truth." Willgrube retired after 27 years of service. Harriet Moore Holmes thought her 2-year tour of duty would be a fun adventure in Hawaii. Holmes was asleep after a night of dancing when she was shaken awake and told the base was under attack. She ran outside and, like Teresa Stauffer Foster, was waved at by a Japanese pilot flying over. Holmes worked tirelessly to care for the soldiers arriving at the hospital, many with burn wounds. At one point, Holmes's roommate found out her fiancé had been killed. While devastated, she kept right on using her nursing skills to treat the patients. As a result of the courageous women who nursed the wounded at Pearl Harbor, the Army Nurse Corps increased to 12,000 just 6 months later. By the end of the war, 1,619 medals, commendations, and citations were awarded to nurses. This included Army Lieutenant Annie G. Fox, who was the first woman to be awarded the Purple Heart Medal. Pearl Harbor Day is dedicated to the men, women, and civilians who endured, fought, and lost their lives during the attack on Pearl Harbor. We can honor these fearless people on December 7th through ceremonies, laying wreaths, organized school activities, and keynote speeches. Not all heroes wear capes. These extraordinary women overcame the challenges and obstacles of their time. Members of the military demonstrated courageous acts as they faced danger. Many lives were lost on December 7, 1941. Those brave men and women will always be remembered. For more books, head to twinkl.com.